Why? Because it's not about economics, it's not about wealth, it's not about what succeeds and what doesn't from an economic perspective. There has to be something else going on. And a lot of socialists, including Karl Marx, admit to this. Karl Marx did not deny that capitalism produces the goods. Indeed, quite the opposite. Karl Marx said, yeah, it raises people into a middle class, it creates a middle class, it creates wealth, it creates success. That's not his objection to capitalism. And I don't think most socialists today are delusional enough to think that it is the path to prosperity. But for whatever reason, they believe that it is the path to morality, to virtue, to goodness. Now, in this context, what do we mean by virtue and morality? If the standard is human flourishing, if the standard is individual human well-being, the ability to make the most of your life, then the argument again is over. So there has to be some other standard that the socialists pine for, that they want, that they desire. So what makes socialism attractive? Why do we think it's cool? Because it turns out most American youth think socialism is cool. In spite of the blood, in spite of the disasters, in spite of the poverty, it's cool. Now, part of that is just plain ignorance. And I think a big part of it is just plain ignorance among young people. They just don't know the history. And it's incumbent on those of us who teach to teach the history and to teach it right. But I don't think it's just ignorance. There has to be something more. And I think this goes to the heart of what we perceive or what we take as ethics, as morality, as virtue, as the good. Because when we're very young, we are taught that what virtue and morality and good means is not flourishing, it's not success, it's not happiness. It's what you do with other people. It's sacrifice. Sacrifice is noble, we tell everybody. That's standard stuff. And sacrifice, yeah, I mean giving stuff up and getting nothing in return. Now I'm very capitalist. It's about sacrifice. It's about being selfless. It's about living for other people. The moral code that we have ingrained in us, more so in Europe than here, but even in the United States, is a moral code that says that the group somehow, the group over there, is more important than the individual, more substantial than the individual. And the ideal for the group is that we all be what? Equal. The ideal for the group is equality. That we all be the same. That we all have the same. Not just equality of rights, not just equality before the law, but equality of outcome. That we all be equal. Now, we know it didn't work under communism because they didn't try it right. And we know it didn't work under Pol Pot in Cambodia. They didn't get it right. This time we're going to get it right. Because the goal, the utopia, the ideal is still the right one. Equality. Now, where this comes from is a long story, this idea that to be equal is somehow good. Because look around this room. I mean, I can see all of you, and let me tell you something. You're not equal. You're all different. Thank God for that. You're all different. You have different abilities, different skills, different characters. You look different. Different ages, different experiences. We're all different. And that is so cool. I mean, it would be awful to live in a world where everybody was exactly the same. Even if everybody's like me, it would be terrible. It would be terrible. And part of the reason we're so wealthy is because we're so different. Because we have a division of labor society where we specialize. And where we can do what we have a comparative advantage doing. It's that division of labor society, that freedom to do what we enjoy, what we have a passion to do, what we have a comparative advantage to do, which is partially what makes us wealthy. But replace all that with some ideal that says we must be equal. Why? Because the metaphysical fact, the fact in reality is we're not equal. And to deny that is to deny reality, to deny existence. And the only way to make us equal is how? How do you make people equal? What's that? Hatchet, axe, and saw is pretty good. I mean, I think the people who took that most seriously, the idea of equality, was probably Pol Pot in Cambodia. I don't know how many of you know the story. But these were well-educated people, educated in the Sorbonne in Paris, came back to Cambodia with the idea that they were going to create an equal society. But they confronted an unequal society. Some people lived in the cities and some people lived in the fields, in the countryside. So what did they do? How do you make those equal? You empty the cities. You drive everybody out of the cities. And as a consequence, some people starve. But that's okay, because the goal is equality. And we're moving towards equality, and it's good. So some people starve. Sacrificing the individual to the collective, that's okay. We've said morality equals selflessness and sacrifice, so we're okay. And then they said, yeah, but even in the fields, even in the countryside, some people are more equal, some people are more able than others. Some people are intelligent, more intelligent than other people. Some people maybe are educated and other people are not educated. Some people have a profession, a skill, some people don't. What do you do? What do you do? How do you create equality when people are so unequal? Well, you basically take anybody who has any kind of exceptional anything and you shoot them. And they did. If you had glasses, that was a sign that you could probably read and you probably went to school or something and you were shot. If you were a good forager of food, you were shot. If you could read, you were shot. And they killed 40% of their own population that way. And they killed all the intelligentsia. They killed everybody who had an education. And yeah, at the end of the day, they had a more equal society. It's called the Killing Fields of Cambodia. You can look it up. You can read about it. It's very morbid, very tragic. But that's what equality of outcome necessitates. There is no other way. Now, I'm going to make the claim, which I think should be kind of obvious at this point, that that's pretty immoral. Worse than that, that's evil. That's downright evil. And I would argue that the whole goal of trying to create equality of outcome from people who are unequal is an evil goal. It counter to nature, counter to reality, counter to human prosperity, existence, and well-being. It is an evil goal, which makes socialism an evil ideology. Not just in practice, but in theory, an evil ideology, because its goal, its mission, is to do something unnatural, to do something that necessitates the destruction of human life. And I don't know what you believe in ethics, but the destruction of human life is evil. So, to finally get rid of this socialist tendency, I think what we need is to challenge these very deep beliefs about morality. Why is the well-being of the group more important than the well-being of the individual? Why is their happiness more important than my happiness? Why isn't the standard of morality my well-being rather than all of our well-being in some collective group? Why is equality a good thing? Where did that come from? And there is no answer to these why questions. To defend capitalism, which has led, again, life expectancy, to prosperity, to human well-being across the board, everywhere it's tried. I think what we need is a new moral code. I think what we need is a new approach to morality. An approach to morality focused on the individual, focused on individual well-being, focused on how to make my life and your life as individuals the best that they can be. I think equality as a goal needs to be scrapped completely. The only value equality has is political equality. We should all be equally free. What happens when you take a bunch of different people, like in this room, and put no constraints on them, leave them free? What do you think happens? Outcomes the same? Everybody turns out exactly the same? No, we're all going to produce different things. We're all going to make different stuff. And it's not just about money, right? Some of us will choose professions, like your professors here in the room choose professions where they're not going to make a lot of money. They're all smart. They could have gone into business. They could have gone to Wall Street, done something, and made lots of money. But they chose to be teachers. Why? Because you know what? The fun of teaching this is more fun than money. It's not about money. It's about living. It's about enjoying life. It's about making the most of your life. That's what it should be about. So scrap equality. All we want is the freedom to live our lives as we see fit. And what we need is a morality that says that that's okay.